Welcome to the UPIHC Table. UPIHC stands for Utah Pacific Islander Health Coalition. I am Tanya Pikula. I am one of the CHWs and have been with UPIHC for about 2 years now.
Awesome. Happy New Year, friends. Thank you for joining us on today's Utah Pacific Islander Health Coalition Table Talk. My name is Luisa, Tupou, and I'm grateful to be here with Tanya today. Today's topic that that we have the pleasure of hearing from two special guests today is on children's health and positive impacts of early literacy. And so we want to highlight our guests today. If you can just wave when we introduce you. We first have Mele Vanisi Latu. And Mele was actually a dental assistant for 11 years before her little family moved back to Utah to begin and start a better situation to buy their first home. She stopped working to be a full stay-at-home mom winter of 2017, which is probably the hardest work of all. And her oldest son, Tim McCoy, who is 7 years old now, was the first student of Waterford Upstart at the age of 4. And now all of her kids, but the youngest, who is only 2, has been a student or is currently in Waterford Upstart right now. Her husband, Sully, and her have 4 children and are expecting their 5th baby in April. Congratulations, Latu family. And she loves to bake and cook all the yummy food she can. Her favorite thing to do is to chill and hang out with her kids and her husband and go to places to spend quality time with him. So if Mel, if you could just wave so our audience knows you, amazing. And then we have Bailey Peters, who is an outreach and development manager with waterford.org, and she previously has been a teacher, a museum educator, and a wildlife biologist intern. Incredible. Bailey is passionate about all things children being given full and fair access to education. So thank you again for both of you being here with us tonight.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Luisa. Glad that you are back with UPIHC and co-hosting again. We're so excited that Mele is here as a Waterford mom to get questions answered from her personal experience having her children be currently enrolled in Waterford Upstart. And then also she has a graduate that also did this free program. And then so glad that Bailey Peters is here on the Waterford Upstart team. She's a great member of the team who is very intellectual and knows so much about Waterford Upstart. So to start off our questionnaire, Bailey, tell us, what is Waterford Upstart?
Thank you, Tanya. Yeah, put simply, Waterford Upstart is a free online learning program for young children in Utah, in other states as well, but obviously we're focusing on Utah today.
Awesome. And how long is the program once you enroll?
Great question. So once enrolled, depending on when you enroll, that could be the year that your child is eligible. If they're 4 by fall of that year, then they'll be eligible for that year. You may start hearing correspondence from us as early as when you enroll. If you enroll your child ahead of time, say when they're 3 or younger, then you'll start hearing from us this spring that they're eligible for that program. As far as how long they're on the program for, it roughly spans a school year. So we start in September and go through until the end of May. And additionally, children will also have the option to continue learning and playing on the program throughout the summer following the program as well.
So Bailey, for 4 and 5-year-olds, is it like the same enrollment time that they're in, or does it change because one is in pre-K and then one is in kindergarten? How does that work?
Great question. As far as this current year that we're doing Upstart is concerned, as Tanya just mentioned, we are currently accepting applications for both 4-year-olds in preschool and 5-year-olds in kindergarten. They are on the program for the same amount of time, starting if they had already been previously enrolled in September and going through May for required usage. For those who sign up even now, they'll be required to use until May. They'll both have access to the program until July 31st of this year, which is really advantageous because it can help them stay fresh on everything they've learned during the school year and help them be up to date with what they're going to be expected to remember this coming fall.
Awesome. Okay. Speaking of access, how can someone get this program? Does it cost money? Like, how is this? I mean, we know this is a free resource, but tell us, like, how is this really a free program? How is it funded?
Absolutely. So the program is free, indeed, yes. And the reason for that is because we get our funding from the Utah State Board of Education. So the program comes at no cost to participating families. Instead, the State Board of Education is able to cover the bill or the cost of this program. Additionally, for families that qualify via income and some other limits, we don't want lack of access to technology to be a barrier for participating in Upstart. So families that qualify via income limits can receive a free computer and internet connection as well, at no cost to them for the length of the program in place in the home, if not already available to them in the home.
That's awesome that everything's free and this resource is for the community as well as the state of Utah. That's everyone within the state of Utah right now. Thank you so much for sharing that part of this free resource.
Of course.
Awesome. I am just kind of curious with regards to your program. You said that normally you guys are reaching out to families. So let's say a family doesn't hear from you. How are they able to reach out? And I guess if they are not reached out to, how can they get in contact in order to like check if their children are eligible to be part of this program?
Absolutely, and great question. The easiest way is to Google Waterford Upstart. It should take you to a website called upstart.waterford.org, and this is how you register for the program. The awesome aspect of this website is whether or not you're eligible, just by entering in a few key pieces of information, the website will be able to tell you if there's a program that your child qualifies for at this time, if we'll need to wait for future years, or if for whatever reason we don't have the funding for a program currently that fits your child's needs, age range, or whatever it is. So the easiest way is by going to upstart.waterford.org. We also have a QR code that's available that I'm sure can be shared in the resources when this episode goes live, as well as a help number that can be called, an 888 toll-free number for families who are struggling with the registration form or it's not working for them, whatever technical difficulties they may have. We also have a great enrollment team on hand that can help walk them through the registration process if so needed.
Awesome. And is the Waterford program, is it online or is it in person? And I just want to understand it a little bit more.
Great question. The Waterford Upstart program is entirely online and designed to be done in home in just 15 minutes a day, 5 days a week, with parents and their young children. So essentially what happens is once children are enrolling on the program, parents will log in to their account on upstart.waterford.org. They'll click the start button and 15 minutes of preloaded, adaptive and adjusted to their child's specific needs lessons will be available for that day. Children will interact with everything from ebooks to songs to activities to interactive art projects to learn at their pace and at their level. And when the 15 minutes is done for the day, children have the opportunity to either end their session or they can also go on to a 15-minute optional math and science program as well. The first 15 minutes always covers reading. That is our highest priority with the Upstart program, but the math and science is available as an extra option for children who want to do the extra 15 minutes a day, will always be available. And it's designed to be done in 5 days a week. But when families get that program in is largely up to them. We encourage them to come up with a unique and flexible routine that fits in their day-to-day life. It doesn't always have to be 15 minutes right after school, Monday through Friday. For some working families, it may work better to do it during the weekends. It may work to do some days in the morning, some days after dinner. That flexibility and that routine is built in to find whatever works best for the family individually.
Amazing. And I'm not sure if you're aware of this information, but I am curious if you possibly have any numbers about how many Pacific Islanders are currently enrolled, or how many have graduated in recent years.
Great question. That's data that I will work to get back to you guys, hopefully by the time this episode goes live. We do have some data specifically that we'll be talking about in just a little bit, specifically about kindergarten and general school readiness and how it's affected not only the Pacific Islander community at large, but specifically our Pacific Islander community here in Utah as well.
Love that. Thank you so much.
Sure thing.
Thanks for clarifying that it's not an on-site early learning program. It's all online. The next question that we have for you is, how did COVID impact kindergarten readiness with this program?
Yeah, great question. And in general terms, when we think about it, COVID really impacted almost every aspect of kindergarten and school readiness in general, whether it was children transitioning to going entirely virtual when it comes to their learning, losing the opportunity to practice social skills with face-to-face interaction, perhaps having a more distant relationship with their teacher and not having as many opportunities to build that bond and trust, to placing childcare burdens on working parents, lack of technological resources for at-home learning. Kindergarten readiness has been heavily impacted by COVID. I could go on and on and on, right? But how did this specifically impact the Pacific Islander community is something I'm sure we're especially concerned with on this Zoom today. I do have just a few data points on a slide here that I'll share my screen for quickly.
Oh, great. Okay.
Perfect. And if I could have the host enable screen sharing, would that be okay?
Yeah, Tisa or Sia, can you guys share Bailey's screen?
Perfect. Alrighty. Okay, can everyone see this bar graph right here? Wonderful. Okay, I'm getting a couple nods. So as you can see here, we have a bar graph that it compares preschool enrollment versus non-enrollment broken down by race, ethnicity. So those who were enrolled in preschool are shown in blue, and those not enrolled in preschool are shown in red. And as you can see, the ethnicity with the biggest disparity between enrolled and not enrolled is the Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander community in the US. Only 26% of Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander children were enrolled in preschool as of 2020, which I'm sure many of us can attribute largely to COVID. If preschool wasn't available before, due to reasons such as everything from lack of availability, perhaps there aren't preschools nearby, to lack of transportation, parents don't have the time or money to travel far away to an available preschool, as well as cost. The vast majority of preschools in the US are private and require tuition, which often comes with heavy fees. Whatever the reason was, the Pacific Islander and Native Hawaiian community was largely impacted in not being able to enroll their children in a preschool program at nearly the rate that we see other races doing so in America. When we think of this in terms of Utah and the Utah and Pacific Islander community in particular, we can see here by this map that we have all of 3 states and the District of Columbia that have universal pre-K, meaning that there is an ensurement that every child in the state will have access to preschool. Utah is not one of those preschools or one of those states where preschool is universally applicable, and thus we can take this data we see of only 26% of Pacific Islander children being enrolled in preschool and see how that's even more so exacerbated in a state such as Utah, where preschool is not guaranteed for families, even when things such as location, cost, or availability of transportation are made available. So I'll go ahead and stop the share. But so like I said, there are so many reasons for which COVID has impacted kindergarten readiness and education in general, not only for children at large across the country, but specifically for Utahns, and most specifically within Utah, the Pacific Islander and Native Hawaiian community.
I'm trying to grasp the information that you just shared with us, and I'm so appreciative of the information. I feel like I came from a family that had struggles of just like to get us to preschool. It just wasn't an opportunity for us. And, you know, I'm grateful for a program like Waterford that allows it to be free and accessible to families, because when I was growing up, we didn't have that opportunity. And so I feel like it's even more important. I'm just curious, if you can share with us, maybe for those who don't know, other parents. I'm a parent, but I feel like I didn't realize how important it was to go to preschool and how it would prepare for a child for kindergarten readiness. But in terms of, I mean, can you share some of the stats, or at least some of the information that you know, being on the Waterford side, for you know, the benefits of enrolling a child early and why that's so important? Because I feel like a lot of parents are just like, even kindergarten in the state of Utah right now is not mandatory. So I just feel like for parents who are like already struggling to get to work, to come, you know, make sure a lot of our PI families are already strapped. They work 2 to 3 jobs. My parents were those parents as well. They worked 2 to 3 jobs, even being educated. I feel like it didn't guarantee that it would make a certain income level. But I feel like, you know, for the parents who are listening to this, who have a million things going on, a million children, and are trying to figure out, how to get to be a part of this. Can you share why it's so important and impactful to get children enrolled early on in a program such as Waterford?
Absolutely. And just as you said, we have parents who are so busy, as if parents haven't already had to don quite literally every cap and role and job you ever possibly could in the healthy and abundant and appropriate raising of their children, from being a therapist to a chef, to a nurse, to a best friend, to an advocate. Whatever it may be that parent is taking on the role, in addition to being a provider for their home, we now ask so much of kindergartners going into the classroom in the fall. The standards are higher than they've ever been, whether it be reading standards, science or math standards. What we expect of 5-year-olds now is far more than we expected of 5-year-olds at my age when I was going to kindergarten in the early 2000s, far more so even than 20 years before that. I think with all the roles that parents have to don as parents, as well as providers, asking them to navigate preparing their child for kindergarten all by themselves without resources, especially free ones, might be a too much of a burden to put on our modern day parents, especially in the COVID day landscape where we're concerned about our health. We're concerned about the legitimacy of policy and how it will protect us and our families, our neighbors, our friends, so on and so forth. What I love about Waterford Upstart is that it has all the resources necessary available to you and your children for free to make sure that they're confident and ready and they have the skills that they're expected to going into kindergarten, whether or not they were able to access preschool. As you mentioned, you grew up in a family where preschool wasn't feasible. Now it's really hard to make it even in kindergarten without the preparation that preschool can give. Whether children are enrolled in preschool or not, Waterford Upstart can get them up to speed in a way that takes all of the guesswork of early learning out of the equation for parents. One of the beauties of Waterford Upstart is that it's an individualized and adaptive program. So rather than every child on the program in Utah participating in the same lesson every week, each child is going to be on a different path on Waterford Upstart, and no two children are working on the same trajectory of lessons each day. Rather than placing all that burden on the parents to know exactly what to teach and when, and how thoroughly to go through a concept before they feel comfortable with moving on to the next step, what the next step even looks like, how to test for mastery and understanding in their children. All this is so complicated, and it takes all the guesswork out of it when you enroll your child in Upstart. You can be confident that they're on a software that is research backed, that has been shown and proven to work, that their children are going to be ready and confident when they go into kindergarten. Children who graduate Upstart finish on average at an early to advanced kindergarten level before they ever even enter a kindergarten classroom. So you can know without having to become a curriculum designer and an early education specialist and teacher on top of every other hat that you wear as a parent, that your child is ready when they walk through the doors and meet their teacher for the first time.
Oh, Bailey, thank you so much for the information you've shared. I know that at least for me as a parent, I feel like somebody sees me and is throwing me a helpline. And so I feel grateful for this information. I know that there are other families that this will reach that will be so grateful. I'm grateful for your time today. I know that you had to excuse yourself before a certain time, so please feel free to jump off in the case that you need to. Before you do so, Tanya, was there any other questions that you wanted to approach Bailey with?
No, that was awesome. Thank you so much for being so thorough and letting our community know about this awesome free resource. The last question I have though is, do you have to qualify besides, the age group? Is there an income qualifications? I know that people are curious about that.
Great question. For the program at large, the only qualifications is that the child lives in Utah, has a Utah address, and for this current year in which we're still enrolling and children would have access to the curriculum until July 31st of 2023, that they be 4 or 5 years old by September 1st of last year. So looking at your child's birth date, if they were 4 or 5 before September 1st of 2022, then you can enroll your child for this current program this year, so long as you have a Utah address. Looking forward into next year's programs and years beyond programs, we will only be accepting preschoolers going forward. The kindergarten expansion of our program was a temporary response on behalf of the Utah State Board of Education to COVID and the impact it had on early education. So going forward, if your children are 4 years old by September 1st at that date, then they'll be able to start on the Waterford Upstart program at that time. As far as income restrictions, the only time in which an income restriction comes into play is if we're looking at the necessity for Waterford Upstart to provide a laptop and or internet connection. This would be for families who fall at a certain level above or below the poverty level, as well as those who don't already have that in the home. For example, if a family has a laptop, but the only laptop available in the home is one that's provided by an employer and is solely for the use of while the parent is at work, then we wouldn't expect them to use that laptop for Waterford Upstart use. And in that case, depending on income restrictions, we could place a laptop in the home for the length of the program.
Awesome. And one final question is, Bailey, how can the Utah Pacific Islander Health Coalition and the Pacific Islander community here in Utah help support your role in Waterford Upstart? I mean, is there a certain amount of children you would like to see enrolling into a program such as these from our community? I saw the disparity in your graph, and so I'm hoping we're shooting high and we're trying to close that gap. So is there something that we can do to help you? Is there a goal that you plan to meet in order to reach our community?
Absolutely. We would love nothing more than to see not only at the level at which Pacific Islanders represent the percentage of the total population in Utah, but to go above and beyond. You know, we would love to see representation in non-white communities that, as we've seen in the data today, don't have equitable access to education resources as much as white populations in Utah do. My job specifically is just to share the message far and wide with every family in Utah to let them know that their young children are eligible for this program and that they're really missing out on an awesome opportunity if they don't sign up. So really sharing this message far and wide with your friends and your family in Utah and letting them know that if they have kids 4 and younger, we want them to sign up now. You don't have to wait until your child's 4. We've had moms sign up newborns in the past and saying, call me in 4 years when they're eligible. I'm so excited to start them on the program. So really just sharing the message of Waterford Upstart, sharing the upstart.waterford.org link with your friends so they know exactly where to go to get registered is all that we ask and all that we can hope for.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Bailey. That's what we're trying to use this platform for. So I feel like we're going to make a good connection here. So thank you so much again for presenting today. We really, really appreciate it. We're going to move on to our second guest. So like I said, you're more than free to stay on as long as you can, or if you need to drop off, we take no offense. Thank you so much for being here and helping our community encourage enrollment for the Waterford program.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Mela, thank you so much for patiently waiting. There were times during the time with Bailey, I wanted to ask you to answer some of the questions, especially when it came to how you manage, I guess I'll just ask that next question. Was there ever a time you had to, wait, let me see. Okay, so two questions. How did you hear about Waterford Upstart, Mela? And then how did you motivate and keep your child engaged in the program since it's 5 days a week, 15 minutes per day? What was your routine like for your family and your children enrolled in Waterford Upstart?
So the way that I came about learning about Waterford was my Aunt Tisa actually was working for Waterford at the time. And she kept telling me to try it for my son. And I think at that time he was 3. So like Bailey was saying, you can sign up ahead of time. So she told me just put him on there. So I did. And then I forgot about it, but they were actually really good at reaching out, sending emails like, hey, time's coming up. So then at that time, my sister's son was enrolled in Waterford. So I had asked her about it and she said yeah, it's really good for him. So I was like, okay. So I was excited. So then time came for my son, Tim McCoy, to start. And so they reached out. So we got him enrolled and then he started. But yeah, it is 5 days a week, 15 minutes. And I am a stay-at-home mom, but I have other kids too. So for me, I think I thought, oh, cool. I'm going to put him on this by himself and he's going to do it. And then it's really interactive with the kids. But like even thinking about it, like back to it, my son had to learn how to use a mouse, and like just the simple things that I thought like get on there and do it. And then he was like, I don't know how to click. So I was like, oh, I have to. So I actually did have to take time out to watch him, which is great as a parent, I think, because then it helps us be interactive with our kids and be behind them to watch. And then also too, seeing what he was learning, it helped me know like this was worth my time instead of putting him on YouTube, you know, like watch this YouTube video. It actually was something that someone put together that it's really good for the kids for them to learn. So yeah, 5 days a week, 15 minutes. And like Bailey was saying, it ended up being like we would do it on Saturday and Sunday sometimes, because throughout the week, you know, it gets busy, some things happen, and he wouldn't do it that day. So I'd be like, okay, we got to make sure to do it on Saturday and Sunday. But it became fun for him. So then that way he was like, okay, I'm going to do it. So at that time he was the oldest. So I didn't have any other kids where if they came home, I'd be like, okay, it's homework time. So I had to make time. So usually we would do it at night is when we had our free time. So I'd be like, okay, learning time. So now that I have my third child in Waterford, he knows like, oh, it's learning time. So it's become a schedule. So it's nice because I've had so many kids in it that they already know like, okay, it's my learning time. I'm going to sit down and do it. Is that all your questions? Sorry, I was trying to think of the other questions. Did I answer all of them?
I think you nailed it.
Okay.
And I'm grateful, Melly, that you are able to share, because I feel like your family setting is something realistic in the PI community. We often have multiple children. You're balancing, it's a balancing act. So I am appreciative of how realistic you were having them do Saturday and Sunday if you needed to. And I really, really liked that you said you set aside time, even though probably all of our kids have touched electronics, something as simple as learning a mouse. I think that's probably dead on for a lot of the families that are watching. So I feel like that's super important. So thanks for sharing that. Was there ever a time that you felt like you had to help your kid like get motivated again to use like to stay committed to their Upstart and their learning program?
Yeah, there was a couple times, you know, I feel like with Polynesians, we always have funerals, weddings, all these things. And it's great because Waterford's like super there for you. Like, you know, you get a family consultant person that's checking up on you. And I feel like at the beginning, I was like, man, they're so annoying. Like, because she would call me like, hey, it looks like Tim McCoy didn't get on. I was just checking. And to me, I know that she cares. But at that point, I was like, you know what? I'm going to get to it when I get to it. But then I realized, like, you know, I'm taking time out of my son's learning time to do extracurricular things, and I need to have him on his schedule. So, I mean, and also, too, it was good because I committed to the program, so I knew that I had to get him on 5 days. And then at the same time, he was there, too. There was days where we were so busy, and then he'd be like, Mom, I didn't do learning time. I was like, oh, my gosh. And then I was like, okay, yeah, we're going to do it tomorrow. So if anything, it helped me be a better parent and more committed, to keep our commitment. And then, so a lot of times that we would fall off our schedule, I think that was where I would have to be like, okay, got to get back on learning time. But it's so nice because we would take the laptop with us. So like if we went to a funeral in California, I would take the laptop with us. And then that way, like I had it with me and he knew like, did I do my learning time? I'm like, oh, let's do it right now. So that actually helped a lot to have the laptop with us. So then that way it made us like, oh, okay. But it was nice because I could do it anywhere. So it's not like, sorry, my light went out. So it's not like sorry, I lost my train of thought. But yeah, so having the laptop made us know that we had to do it. But it's nice because you can do it anywhere. So you don't have an excuse to be like, we're out of town, we're doing all these things. And Waterford's really good because they'll call and be like, hey, what's going on? So a couple times I did tell them, like, we went to a funeral. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Is there anything that we could do to help you get back on? So that in itself, I knew that they were there because they wanted us to have our children progress. It wasn't just like, well, you didn't do your time. They really did care because then like a week later, she'd be like, how are you guys doing since the funeral? So that was cool too, because you build a relationship with your family consultant. So yeah.
That's awesome. I love that you talked about you being able to take it anywhere because it is a free online early learning program. And that's awesome that there is a family assistant or like consultant or coach, I think is what they call it, that assists you and helps you in case you guys, need help or get stuck or just need that motivation. That's nice that they have that family like assistant for you. Cause what Luisa said, like realistically, like family, even with one child, we're busy, especially like being Polynesian, like we're always busy, always got stuff going on. And even if we don't, like we like our relaxed time, so although it's like a free program, sometimes we just want to relax and do other things and not always stay on schedule. I mean, that's how I am. I'm not speaking for you, but okay. The next question we have is, what would you say to another parent who might be hesitant to enroll their child in Upstart? What are words of advice that you have for those future parents?
I say just do it. It's free. And it's better than, like I said, it's better than YouTube. It's better than anything. It's an interactive program where your child is actually learning. And then it's cool because throughout the program, like they'll recognize the child individually, right? So like there's certain things where, let's say one day my son has been learning the letter A. By the end of it, it'll say, today you learned the letter A. So then my son will be super excited. He'll come and say, I learned A today. And then it's cool throughout the day because then he's more like open to be like, that's apple, A. And so I'm like, yeah. So whereas you could put a kid in front of YouTube and they could use the letter A, whereas this one is more interactive. And again, it's a free program. So I feel like everyone's always looking for something free and good for our kids. And this is the best thing that you could do for your kid, and it's free.
Love that. Free is the magic word. I like how you highlighted that, Mele.
Yes.
If it's no cost, I mean, I like how you also talked about there's a lot of things that our kids touch and see, especially on electronics. I'm sure if anyone has a child in the age range of 3 to 5, they probably have touched a phone. So I like how you mentioned that there's things that they could be doing and that this program is interactive, because I feel like I'm sure other parents, it's not the right thing, but sometimes it's like, here, watch the phone. I need a moment, but I feel like even just putting them on Waterford Upstart, because I remember Bailey said it's 15 minutes a day, but you can actually do it longer, right?
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. And I would be that parent, like, hour on Waterford Upstart.
Get back on there right now.
So I love that. For you, Mele, what are some of the things that you saw change within your child while he did a Waterford Upstart? And maybe even this time around with your third child being enrolled, what are things that you've seen or changes that you've seen in a positive light?
For sure. So my first one, my son, like I'm laughing because you're like, stay on there for an hour. So my first one, I would always tell him, you have to do it twice, because after the 15 minutes, they have this screen that comes on that lets the kids know, like, hey, you're done, or you can continue. So I would tell my son, remember, 2 times. So he would stay on there for at least 30 minutes. And that was to help me, but also himself. But I realized that, so with my son, because he did it 2 times, like Bailey was saying, he has math and science after 2 with the reading. But so after my son graduated, he in his they take like a end of the year test for kindergartners, and he actually passed the test and passed another test. So they actually asked him to be in a gifted program. And so at that time I was like, okay, but my daughter was coming into school. And so I asked if they could take her to the gifted program, but she's just brand new. So that gifted program, you have to pass certain tests. And so because he passed them, he was qualified, but my daughter wasn't. So being the parent that I am, I was like, he's going to stay with his sister. And I was like, my mom was like, oh, you're holding him back. But for me, I was just happy that he was able to show that he was super smart. And then I told my mom, we'll just keep him at home and, have him read all the books and stuff like that. So just that in itself, knowing that he passed a test that I didn't even know existed, I feel like for sure that was credited to Waterford, because if not, he would have just been like a regular kindergartner, but he was able to pass these tests. So that was really cool. But now that my other kids, so I have 2 other kids, one of them was graduated too from Waterford, but then my youngest, he's doing Waterford right now. It's cool to see that they've all been enrolled in it because they all help each other. So now when my youngest is doing it, it's nice because I can make dinner and stuff while they're doing it, because if he has a question, he doesn't ask me, he asks my son who's 7. Like, Koi, I am stuck. And so Koi knows, because also too, if another kid gets on it, then the Waterford would think that they know certain things, but now my kids know, like, oh, I can't touch it, I can help him. So it's actually helped my kids become more independent and also being able to help their younger siblings in the program. So that's been cool for me as a mom.
So cool. Thank you so much for sharing. I feel maybe like just 1 or 2 more questions. For you, Mele, what has it required of you? I feel like this is an important question because I feel like you mentioned it a little bit before that you were like, you can go do it, but you had to teach your son to use the mouse. How often were you, this is just for the parents who are like, can I do this mentally? How much time were you committing as a parent for your child's sessions? Like, were you just starting them off, or were you sitting with them for the full time? I mean, or did it kind of, can you share your experience about that?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, like I said in the beginning, I literally like turned on the laptop, signed him in, and I was like, okay, you're good. And I walked away. And then he was like, Mom, I don't know how to do it. I was like, what? How do you not know these things? Because I had watched him on phones, and so it just automatically, and I think too, it was my fault because I was just like, he could do it by himself while I go do all these things. Because, we try to multitask. But then I realized I had to sit down with him. So the beginning of the program, I honestly have to say that I had to sit with him for the first 15 minutes for the first maybe month, where I had to sit, watch him. And then for sure I could sit on the side and do something extra, but I also had to pay attention to what he was doing because sometimes he'd click other places and I was like, okay, no, you got to do that. So I'd say for the first month, I was sitting with him for the 15 minutes. But I mean, if you think about 15 minutes, it can go by fast. And so for sure, like I say, you could do other things, but this is the best for the kids. So I'd say for the first month, I had to sit with him for the 15 minutes. After that, he started getting it. And then also too, it was routine. So then he was able to get on it. And then I could just literally sit by him and do my other stuff that I needed to. And then after the month, he became more independent. And then I was able to actually be in another room doing stuff. And then he knew I had to do it 2 times. So, and he'd come in every now and then I did it twice. Can I be done? So I was like, yeah, you're done. So after a while, but I'd say for the first month, know that you have to sit down for the 15 minutes with the kids. So, and that's a great sacrifice to do with the kids because it'll benefit them down the road anyways.
Thank you so much, Mele, for sharing your experience. That was very personal to you and your family, and thank you for being very honest about the feedback regarding Waterford Upstart. I feel like sometimes we hear things, but hearing it from our own community will definitely be the most impactful thing. And so I hope we're so grateful for you sharing your experience for your family, and also incredible Tupou for the gifted class. I just wanted to say that's incredible. So take the win. That's incredible. And I feel grateful that you were able to share your experience. Was there anything you wanted to, any tips or anything that you wanted to leave us off with for the parents that are looking into this year? No. So the first year that we did it, I actually did ask to have a laptop from Waterford. And so we did qualify. So that was a huge benefit. So I say for our Polynesian community, you should just ask if you qualify because that's a great benefit to have. And they also do internet too, free internet. So I think sometimes we think, oh, I don't have this, I don't have that. But Waterford actually makes it super easy for us to just be part of it. So I say, if anything, ask them all your questions and they'll answer all of them and they'll tell you resources that they have. And they're always willing to help. So yeah, my first year we got a laptop and they even were like, do you need internet? And I almost was like, yes. And I was like, no, it's okay. I'll just use our internet. So, they're super helpful. So yeah, I would say take advantage of all the benefits that they offer. Thank you so much.
so much, Mel, for sharing your children's successes and your personal experience, like Luisa said, about the realistic experience that you had as a Polynesian mom with Waterford. It's so awesome, yeah, that he went to the gifted class, or he had the opportunity to do it. That's so great to hear, and just so grateful to know that Waterford Upstart really does work, especially when parents like you are also putting in the work to have their children succeed. That's amazing. Thank you for spending time with us tonight and waiting for your portion of this UPIHC Table podcast, or I don't even know if I'm saying it right, but thanks for waiting. I think for now, we're going to move on to the last part of our UPIHC Table, is just letting our community know about resources as well as COVID-19 data. So thank you again, Mela, for your time.
Yeah, thanks you guys.
Okay, Luisa, I am going to share our COVID-19 updates within the Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander community in Salt Lake City. So I'll just be reading that for a few minutes, or not minutes, sorry, just a few seconds. So as of January 27th, 2023, there's been a total of 19,765 Pacific Islanders who have contracted COVID-19. 17 Pacific Islanders have been infected with COVID-19 over the last week. The Pacific Islander case rate is 1.77 times higher than the overall statewide rate. 1,450 Pacific Islanders have been hospitalized for COVID-19. 2 Pacific Islanders have been hospitalized within the COVID-19 over the last week. The Pacific Islander hospitalization rate is 2.0, or 2 times higher than the overall statewide rate. 132 Pacific Islanders have died of COVID in Utah. 1 Pacific Islander has died from COVID-19 over the last week. The Pacific Islander death rate is 2.5 times higher than the overall statewide rate. So you can find that information online. You can always Google COVID-19 Utah data, but that specific website comes from coronavirus-dashboard.utah.gov.demographics.html. That was a mouthful. Sorry about that.
Tanya.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Those stats are important to still be aware of, that it's still impacting our community here in Utah. So please get your vaccinations and be mindful of those around you. And just to close up, we just wanted to thank again our special guests that came in tonight to speak about Waterford Upstart, Bailey Peters and Mele Vanisi Latu, for their experience and free resources that can help our Pacific Islander families here in Utah. So please take advantage of that resource. And everyone has new goals at the start of the year. I feel like educational ones are almost always at the top of the list for PI families. And so please look into that if you think that you and your family might be eligible, which I feel like everyone is. So please assist in getting our kids enrolled so that we can help with the kindergarten readiness scores in the start of every year. And then just to close up, we do have a diabetes workshop coming up in the month of February. So this workshop is free and available to all individuals who might be impacted by diabetes. This training will be ran by 2 community health workers within the Utah Pacific Islander Health Coalition. And it will be in the evening time. If this is something that you are wanting to learn more about or know more about, please reach out to our Utah Pacific Islander Health Coalition team. You can send a message, or if you know any one of us, please feel free to reach out. This diabetes workshop, I feel like, is transformational for those who have individuals or family members or loved ones who've been impacted by diabetes. This can help you understand more about eating habits, about what's safe, and resources to help you to get into a healthier position with your diabetes and learn how to manage it in a more effective way. This isn't just for those with diabetes, but maybe you have a parent or a loved one that you help maybe cook for or watch or caretake for. I feel like this is impactful for anyone in our community, because I know that in the PI community, we're oftentimes caretakers for ourselves and many times the family. So if you find that a diabetes workshop might be impactful for you to learn how to help your loved ones or yourself manage diabetes, please feel free to reach out. Like I said, Happy New Year. Thank you for joining us tonight on tonight's UPIHC Table. Mahalo and Fafitai. Tanya, any last words for us tonight?
No, I'm just happy that we got to have our first episode of 2023. And thank you so much for sharing.